Of course, the All Blacks named their 33, the 33 men that will represent New Zealand at the Rugby World Cup yesterday. And joining us is a wonderful human being, but an even better coach, John Hart. John, thank you so much for your time. So good to have you back on the program. How are you? How's everything going in your world?
I'm good, thank you, Kirsty, and nice to be back on your program.
Well, thank you for your time. We do appreciate it. Now, this squad that was picked yesterday, what do you think? Are you happy with the names down there? Plenty of Blues representation.
I think it's a really exciting squad. I think it's a squad of great depth, a squad of great experience, and it's a form team as well. If I had one concern, it would be that they've only named 5 loose forwards, and I think that puts a lot of pressure on the loose forwards, particularly when you've got Brodie Retallick going into the first couple of games, and players like Scott Barrett and Tupu Vai, who are locks, who could cover the loose forwards. But there's a little bit of pressure on there. But outside of that, I think it's a very, very well-balanced squad.
Hardy, fascinated when you say it's a form team, and when you go to World Cup, I mean, looking at this mob, it seems like we've got our 15. I think we could all probably name the 15 that's going to play France right now. How much does form at the Cup alter things? Do you go there and go, right, this is going to be my 15, or do you change things depending on how you think people are travelling, albeit the All Blacks have probably only got one big pool game to judge people fairly?
Yeah, I think Beaver, I think that's a good point, but generally, I think you're pretty settled, and the nature of the competition, as you say, there's for the main team, there's really the French game, and then Italy, and then the quarterfinal. So I don't think you're going to see much change. I think the players will get an opportunity to make their claims in the other matches, and that might influence the bench from time to time. And of course, if you've got injuries, it can influence the main team, but I think we have a real settled look about our selection, and I think that's a real strength of the squad going in. So I think you should see the team. Possibly, I think they'll play, most of that team against South Africa in a few weeks' time, and that'll give it a good hit out leading into France and then Italy and hopefully a quarterfinal against either Ireland or South Africa. But the backup players obviously have the Namibia and Uruguay games as an opportunity to stake their claims.
As Beaver says, most of us know what the starting 15 is by now from those first 3 teams of the year for the All Blacks. What does the bench look like for you? What does that makeup look like?
Look, I think there's whilst everyone says the 15's pretty settled, that probably lock would be the only spot where you'd say you've got 3. And
what do you do when everyone's fit and available?
Oh, look, I think Scott Barrett, Brodie Retallick, and Sam Whitelock all bring tremendous strengths in it. So I think they'll be able to look at it and just pick for the game. But whoever is on the bench is going to be a very powerful influence in seeing out a game. And I thought, that's where the experience of these guys will help the team. And you saw it last weekend, I think. The experience of a player like Sam Whitelock was very vital in getting the team out of a bit of a hole and coming home strongly.
Hardy, when you look at the squad, I think Kirst did some numbers before, and it's probably under less than half the team have actually been to
17 haven't been.
17 haven't been to a World Cup. Is that a factor that, as a head coach, you worry about? Do you keep an eye on people thinking, this is different? How does it affect them? What have you?
Yeah, not really. I think they'll all be so enthusiastic, and it looks like a good environment, and I think it's a very competitive environment, but the competition's also good in the sense that they're all working with each other to help each other. Look, I don't think you'll have any issue at all in that regard. I think the team as a group have so many options available to it. That's one of the wonderful things about this selection. There's a lot of versatility in the team and from the bench. There's hardly, that's why they've got the luxury of possibly taking, just a 3 fullback first 5'8" options, although they know they've got Will Jordan. Midfield options, go everywhere.
Yeah.
Certainly Anton Leonard-Brown can play 12-13. David Havili can play 10 if he had to, 15, 12. I mean, it's fantastic flexibility. And then in the forwards, you've got the similar things with all the loose forwards. And that's why probably they went for 5 is the versatility of, people like Luke Jacobson, Dalton Papali'i, and Adi Savia. They can all go across potentially 6, 7, 8 if necessary.
John, just on the Rugby World Cup, how much pressure is there on the All Blacks, and how do you actually deal with those pressure moments and expectations when you're at a cup for both the players and the coaches?
Well, I think there's always going to be those pressures on any All Black side when they take the field. They've been there forever, and I think that pressure helps you in a way because the expectation drives a lot of the motivation of our team, because we want to perform. Look, I don't think it's a big thing. I think the main thing is, particularly in this tournament, which is a lot more drawn out than previous tournaments. There's 10 days between. I think there's 10 days between 2 of our games.
Yeah.
Normally it's 6 or 7. So the big thing will be to keep the team happy, to keep them active, to make sure they're enjoying themselves just outside of the practice and playing ground. And I think, no better place to do that than France. So I think France is a wonderful place to tour, and it will be a wonderful place to stage this tournament. And look, I think the players, you saw it last night, didn't you? How excited some of them were. I thought it was fantastic to see that excitement. And the big thing for me personally was, as a coach, was to look at Ian Foster and say, well done. Yeah. Well done. A year ago, he was written off. He went through a terrible time, one that I personally, I supported him where I could privately. I thought it was unbecoming of us. And he's gone through that. He's got a world-class coaching team around him. It's given him the chance to elevate himself. I think possibly, a couple of years ago, he had issues with his assistants, and that maybe complicated things for him, that he had to get involved in a lot wider and a lot more. Now I think he's got world-class assistants in Joe and Jason, Greg, Peake, people who are really doing their job well. Gives him the opportunity to just step back and do what he is. He's a smart coach, and he's now able to really lead that. And I really feel happy for him because, a year ago, half of New Zealand wanted him gone, and no one gave the All Blacks a chance. And now all those writers that were writing him off are now saying this is a real chance, this team. And that's a good thing. And we'll have pressure, and it won't be easy because, you got to get through France. But the big pressure point will come in the quarterfinal for me. Yeah. Because I believe if we win the quarterfinal, we're in the final. And I personally think it'll be against France. I think the first game of the tournament may well be the last game of the tournament.
And before we let you go, obviously you touched on Fozzie and the turnaround in the 12 months and the players and what have you. The other thing that's been great to watch, I think, is the brand of footy they're playing and going to a World Cup. Obviously, I remember your team that you took also played an amazing brand of footy, probably thanks to the superstars that you had in your back division. But that sort of footy that they're playing at the moment, it's able to stand up in the World Cup, you think?
Absolutely, and that's where I think we've seen a dramatic shift in the last 12 months. This team now can physically handle, the real tough physicality. We saw that against South Africa, who came down and threw everything at us in 2 halves with 2 different forward packs. We withstood that. We gave it back. So I think our tight forwards, have a real ability to compete now at that level. Our scrum, our line-out, our maul is strong. And I think they've got back to simple things. I think they were getting a little complicated. And now I see the game plan very simple. And it's, run by, I think Richie Mo'unga and Beauden Barrett are proven to be a really good 1-2 team. And that creates opportunities in the backs. And we know we've got all that firepower. So I think the mixture of now being able to handle things physically and handle whatever's thrown at us, plus the ability to keep a simple game plan together but play it at speed and pace, gives us, I think, a total different look from maybe 12 months ago.
John, you've got so much knowledge and so much mana. It's an absolute privilege to have you back on the program. You know we all love you here. Thank you so much for your time.
SENZ. It's Kiwi for Sport.